Ball player. I had multiple opportunities to sit down and talk with him. Very bright, understands the game, really a mature, intelligent guy in terms of defensive structure, coverages, reading route patterns, etc. Very impressed with that. And he wants to be a Raider, and so it was exciting for us to be able to make that happen, and excited to put him in with our group, and I know he's eager to get to
behind, ball to the sideline, was he in bounds? Yes, he was! Jones chucks it downfield and has a first down to Kendrick Bourne, who had it ripped out. Jones, too tall and picked off. Marcus Peters.
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Hey, welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with my co-host, Ryan Holmes. And as always, we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, or X, whatever that thing's changed to. I guess he changed the name of it. I don't know what's going on with Twitter these days. RHOLM22 is Ryan's, and you can also reach us, in the comment section of the show. We love questions. I know we got a bunch of questions here that we're going to discuss in the show today, so that's going to be cool. And then a lot of stuff going on with the Raiders, good, bad, or indifferent. There is never a shortage of conversational topics to talk about, Ryan, when it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders, correct?
Never a shortage. Just dive onto Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, and you can find topics pretty quickly.
Yes. The Raiders do a great job of providing content for us as well, too. So let's start off with Marcus Peters. It was going to be a Jimmy G start off, but we're starting off with Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters, obviously, Bay Area native, all that stuff like that. We know what kind of player he was. I guess right now we got to talk about what kind of player he will be in this defense. Obviously, a guy who can catch interceptions, which is something that is, for my entire life, I think, besides this, with Rod Woodson or Charles Woodson, the Raiders have struggled to do that. What are your thoughts about him joining Patrick Graham's defense?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is you're adding another dog to the defense with Max Crosby that has that attitude where he wants to intercept the ball, he wants to make plays, and he's not afraid. And that's something the Raiders haven't had in the secondary in a long time. And just for him to come in now, I'm not expecting the Pro Bowl Marcus Peters to show up with 7 or 8 interceptions, 2 house calls, lockdown number 1, but he can go out there and be a solid number 2. He can go out there and help the young guys, what to look for, keys to interceptions, how to read certain routes, certain splits, just bring that veteran presence, which they don't have, honestly, in the secondary right now. And then if he gets 4 or 5 interceptions and makes some plays along the way, great. They got him for a pretty cheap deal. He's going to slide in and be a starter. He's the best cornerback on this roster right now, even at 30 years old, coming off an injury in 2021 and played okay last year in 2022, not up to his standards. But he's clearly the most talented defensive back in that room right now.
Didn't they change defensive coordinators last year? Plus he got hurt. So I know that there's some numbers that people don't like. There's some ugly numbers like, the 7 touchdowns. And then like the QBR of 116 when targeted. We'll see how all that works out, and we'll see what happens there. I think the thing that's really going to be something that I'm going to watch for is him in zone coverage. I think that's going to be something where his eyes, when he can drop back and look at the quarterback's eyes, read coverages, he's very good at those things. So I think he could be a guy who can even if you don't get the interception, you get a PBU that could lead to an INT for somebody else. Maybe the quarterback get off of that side because he needs to go somewhere else. And what you really want to do is just disrupt the timing and have the quarterback throw late somewhere on the field. And when he throws late, that could lead to a turnover.
Yeah, I think the one thing he's going to do is he's going to take chances. calculated chances, but he will give up touchdowns as a result of some of the guesswork. But he's going to make plays as well. He's going to jump routes. He's going to read quarterback sides. He's going to fall off his receiver into other routes. He understands route combinations. And I think where they're really going to use him is either trap coverage or even palms coverage, where he's basically playing two read, where he's reading the inside receiver. And if that guy breaks short, he's gonna leave the number one. He's gonna leave that for the safety, and he's gonna come down and cover the flat, which they did a lot last year with Amik Robertson when he played outside. So just reading through that number two receiver to the quarterback and just making plays in the flat is something he can still do. And like I said, a lot of people are saying washed on Twitter. That's if you think you're getting a 24, 25-year-old Pro Bowl caliber defensive MVP that he was prior. That's not who he is. Fortunately, the Raiders have seen a lot of this where guys, get in their late 20s, early 30s, come over, try to replicate some of the success they had in the past. But if you have reasonable expectations of, a solid starting cornerback that can get you 4 or 5 interceptions, then I think you'll be fine with what you're going to get out of Marcus Peters.
Do you worry about him in a world where, like, if the Raiders get off to he's a veteran who's used to being on winning teams, all those things like that. If the Raiders get off to a slow start, is he gonna kind of stay engaged throughout the season? That could be something that's a question that was raised to me a lot. And I think that plus the fact, I think that was one question, but also the fact that the guy is playing on a 1-year deal. Like this is his opportunity to get some cash. Maybe next year, maybe not from the Raiders, from somebody else.
Yeah, I think these players are as good he is and has been in the past have egos, and he's going to want to prove to everybody that he still thinks he can be the guy he was. So I think you're getting a motivated Marcus Peters that's going to come in. He's not 33, 34. He's 30 years old. So he's going to come in, try to reestablish his market to maybe capture a multi-year deal, 2, 3, 4-year deal in the offseason. So I think you're going to get the best out of him regardless of how the team performs. I wouldn't worry about him, sulking and putting his head down or basically giving up on the season if they fall off quickly. Because Marcus Peters is still worried about his career and his legacy, and he wants to be a Raider. That's the other part of it. This guy grew up a Raiders fan, so I think you're going to get everything you can out of it.
Yeah, I think the Raiders. Listen, they needed a veteran. They needed a veteran presence, and they got a veteran presence. Like, you know what I mean? So like they needed a guy, so they were able to
They
get
need
that
a
guy.
Starter. Let's be real.
They need to stay, no question about it. They need a starter, and they got a starter. So hopefully, that can and then it gives them a little flexibility. Like, can they move Hobbs around? Can they do all those? What can they do with the rest of the pieces? It also creates something that we can go into it right now. Is like it creates a battle here in that secondary. That secondary has a lot of pieces in it. And then it's going to be, a lot of guys kind of fighting for jobs. You mentioned Amik Robinson. Amik Robinson could be looking for work somewhere else because of what the Raiders did with signing Marcus Peters. And then you have people like Sam Webb. You got David Long. You got Brandon Faison, like Duke Shelley. So there's a lot of pieces here. So they have depth there. They don't have like great starter depth there, but they do have depth there that can be an issue as far as some of these other corners. I mean, what do you think? Maybe 5 corners, 6 corners on this team coming up this season?
I think they're going to carry 6. But like you said, there's a lot of competition. We'll use the word competition. It's a competition, a bunch of fringe guys. Let's be honest. We're not talking about a competition where you have elite level players, emerging stars battling for playing time. This is just a collection of guys at this point, outside of probably Peters and Hobbs. So, I mean, if you're going to keep 6, do you want to keep 2 guys that are primary slot? Do you want to keep 1 slot, 1 guy that has flexibility to go inside, outside? What are their real plans with Duke Shelley? Do they want him playing the slot? Is he going to be full-time outside? I don't think they like Amik Robertson full-time outside, and they don't really love him in the slot. I think if they bring in another corner, I know they worked out Troy Hill. If they bring in Troy Hill, I think Amik Robertson's days are numbered here. But if they keep 6, I would say right now the guys that are safe are probably Hobbs, Peters. I would say Shelley, just because he can give you that versatility. And then the rest is up for grabs. And you're going to have 6 or 7 guys battling for 2 or 3 spots. And it's just, what do they want to do? If they're comfortable with Tyler Hall in the slot and Duke Shelley or in a combination of Hobbs, then you probably don't need any of the other guys that can play slot. So probably need two guys that can play the slot, and you need guys that can play outside, and then special teams. So I think it's going to come down to Webb or Faison. You're not going to keep both, and just kind of see. You're going to see a couple of guys battle for a couple of spots, and there's going to be guys cut. And same thing in the wide receiver room when you start looking at that. Like, there's a lot of guys, but how many of them like actually have spots sewn up, and what is the real competition going to be?
Yeah, no question about it. And I think also, I mean, you gotta figure one of those spots is there for Jacorian Bennett because he's one of their guys, no question about
That's
it.
four. That's four
That's
guys that
four.
are pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're one or two spots for the whole rest of these guys, including guys they signed as free agents in the offseason.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about Long. Is he a safe? I don't know.
Yes.
I would think so. He can play on the outside. He's got some length, but
Yeah.
they're obviously targeting. If you look at all the guys they brought in, they're all 6 foot or taller. They're all long. They're all 200 pounds. So like the Robertsons and those guys, other than Shelley, like Tyler Hall, the smaller guys, like they're probably battling for one spot.
Yeah. It should be fun. Should be a fun battle there. Are you going to training camp?
Yeah, Friday. Tickets for Friday.
So Friday, Ryan will be at training camp. So that'll be kind of, he gets some good information out there. See if you can get some info, like some of these beat writers for the Raiders.
Depending on where they put me, I might be sitting next to those guys over in that field.
Well, tell Vic we said hi, because he was on the show. He's on the show this year. So so nothing but a G thing, of course. Jimmy Garoppolo he walks in with no limp or nothing like that. His foot's ready to go. I think that was very important for him to be successful as a head coach with this team this year. He wanted his quarterback. He got his quarterback. And this is a guy who has won a lot of games. We're going to see what he is with the Raiders. It's good to have him in now because like he has to work with these receivers. Like he has to work with Devontae, has to work with with Hunter Renfrow, has to work with the tight end room, like all those things. Got to work with Jacoby Myers, all those players like that. So he's been on some really good teams. The question is, if a little bit more was put on his shoulders, could he handle that? And we'll find that out. I guess coming up this year, because he's going to be put in a situation where he's not on a team with a top 5 defensive unit.
No, he's not, but he's on a team that has the best receiver in the NFL, and he's never had that either. And he has a good young tight end, and he has a solid number 2 in Myers, and he has a good slot receiver, and he has a good running game, assuming Josh Jacobs comes back for week 1. I think the telling thing here is the Raiders released Chase Garbers today. Yeah. So that tells me that you're going to see a lot of Hoyer and O'Connell in the preseason. I don't think we're going to see Jimmy very much at all. But they must be really confident about his health to basically just release Chase Garbers at this point, who would be the only quarterback who was on this roster last year. So you have 3 new guys that weren't on this roster. So they must feel really comfortable with where Jimmy G is at today. And I think Jimmy G, and there was a little bit today when Josh McDaniels had a press conference, talked about incorporating some of the stuff he did in San Francisco that he likes to do, that he's good at. So it's good to hear Josh McDaniels talk about incorporating some concepts from the 49ers that Jimmy G is comfortable running and just kind of bouncing ideas off them. Because we didn't really hear that last year with Derek Carr. It was more like, here's my system. This is what we're going to do it.
Oh, here we go.
Josh McDaniels today saying, hey, we're going to run some of the stuff that Jimmy G's comfortable with.
So the Carr stands were right. They're going to say, hey, it was a conspiracy.
But we don't know that he didn't do that with Derek Carr. I'm sure he did.
I know. But it's just funny but it's playing around, of course. But yeah, so that's a smart thing to do. I think seriously, right off the bat, I think the tight end room should be very pleased that he's healthy, because I think that you're there. His game inside the numbers is a pretty good one. And I think that both Mayer and Hooper could really, if they do any two tight end stuff or whatever it is, he does dial up plays for the tight end in his offense and throughout his whole life as a play caller. And I think Mayer could be on to, if he comes in as advertised, they could really use him like doing his thing in the middle of the field.
That's a good 1-2 punch. Mayer and Hooper, for what they bring and how they can complement each other. Hooper, more of a pass catcher, can get down the seam. not as explosive he was early in his career, but still a solid tight end as far as the pass catcher. And the Mayor can do a little bit of both, the big body, the inline blocking, and then he can also post up guys. He can run across the middle. He's not afraid. He's big. He can run down the seam. So he's going to do probably a lot of the Gronkowski stuff that was in this offense. And you're going to see more of Hooper doing some of the Hernandez stuff when they went to 12 personnel. And don't sleep on OJ Howard either. OJ Howard's still a decent tight end.
Yeah, I think those three guys we mentioned are going to be the tight end. So what, three tight ends, and one and put one on the
I would say it's Howard versus Horstad for that third spot. I'd probably lean Howard just because he's a better run blocker.
Yep.
And they probably get Horstad onto the practice squad, I would assume at this point.
Yeah, and I would that would make sense. That would make sense. So what do you feel about and a little bit off topic, but Justin Herron, he passed his physical. He's going to be an option for them. I do think anytime you can get a tackle who has experience in playing in National Football League, because I don't want to curse this by saying what I'm going to say, but the Raiders have never had to deal with a long-term Colton Miller injury or long-term Max Crosby injury, knock on wood. And Colton Miller's been perfectly fine there, but just to have quality depth behind him and some versatility on that offensive line would be good.
Yeah, I do like the depth. We'll call it depth. Again, it's similar to the cornerback room. There's guys, there's bodies, but are they going to be starting caliber if called upon? I think you still have Munford, you still have Brandon Parker who can slide over, who's actually played better at left tackle when he was called upon and Miller was injured. And then Herron, can he play guard? I don't know if he's played inside at all, but that would help him make a case to make the roster if he can play both guard positions and both tackle positions. You can always move. My guess is Illuminor would go over to left tackle if anything happened over there to Colton Miller, and then you could plug in Miller, Mumford, whoever, right tackle.
Yeah, interesting battles there as far as that goes. What's the realistic outlook for Jimmy at quarterback for you going into this season? What's I mean, we're not playing Madden, so we're not gonna have 45 touchdowns or anything like that, 6,000 yards passing, but what do you feel like looking at him, knowing this offense and knowing what he's capable of and what he's good at, what he struggles with? What do you feel about Jimmy G coming up this year?
Assuming he stays healthy, that's the underlying assumption.
That's a big assumption.
17 games.
Yeah.
4,000 yards, and he's not going to be a 5,000 yard guy. And I don't see a 4,500 yard guy, but 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 to 10 picks, not earth shattering numbers, but I don't think he's going to go out there and just face plant. He knows the offense. He's been around. He knows coverages. He has a guy he can lean on in Devontae Adams. He's going to have a running game. He's going to have a tight end. He's going to have a solid number two. So the one thing that doesn't get pointed out with Jimmy G, and it's something I've been thinking about, is he's never had anyone the quality of Devontae Adams. He has a legit guy that he can just lock on to and throw the ball to whenever he needs to. He didn't have that in New England. He didn't have that in San Francisco. Maybe George Kittle, but George Kittle's not Devontae Adams as far as a playmaker. So it's going to be interesting to see, if he's going to mold his game a little bit. Is he going to push the ball vertically a little bit more? We know he didn't do that in San Francisco, but they didn't have the pieces to do that. They didn't have vertical guys. It was get the ball out of the hands quickly, a lot of that boot action off the run game, a lot of tight end stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and hopefully the screen game shows up. I know we talked about it a lot last year that the Raiders have never had a screen game in my lifetime since Napoleon Kaufman was around. Maybe Harvey Williams days, but who also was on the show. A little shout out to Harvey Williams. But can they get the screen game going? That'll help Jimmy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, like I said, the screens and seams will definitely help an offense. Anytime you can get that. I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing is, yes, Jimmy's here and he's here with Josh. I think no matter what happens this year with the Raiders, and I don't know if we'll save our picks for how they're gonna do this year for later shows, but score points. This offense with everybody in it for another year And the guy who one of the pieces they have who wasn't in it last year, but he was in it, with McDaniels in New England, Jacoby Myers. Like, I mean, everybody's been in this offense to a certain extent. Maybe not the tight ends, but still they can still acclimate themselves to it. This offense needs to score points. If they're able to score points, then we'll see what the defense is, and we'll worry about what the defense is as the season goes on. But at least score points. When you score points, you're in every game. You have an opportunity, and maybe they can catch fire and do something. But like at the very least, where I would be worried about my head coach if I was Mark Davis is if Jimmy plays an entirety of a season, or maybe misses, maybe plays 15 games, but they're not a really good offensive team. Like, this team should be a really good offensive team.
Yeah, it's going to be dependent on the offensive line and the run game and when he's going to show up and what kind of shape he's going to be in when he gets there. And then play some teams where, there's a chance they're going to get down. They're going to have to come from behind. And I don't think they're suited really to do that, to just get into shootouts. But I do see a path. I said 25. I could see him getting 30 touchdowns. Like, there is a path to 30 touchdowns if he plays.
If he plays 17 games, yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah, that's
he could.
1.7 a game, 1.8. Like, can he get 12 or 13 to Devontae? Can he get 5 to Mayer? Can he get 6 or 7 to Myers? Can he get 5 or 6 to Renfro? Can he get a couple of the backs? You're at 30. It's going to be the turnovers. He's going to have to really limit the turnovers, those crucial throws late in the game you've seen him do in San Francisco, and get bailed out by the defense, and then the fumbles. Like, if he just doesn't fumble and can limit the picks and not put this team in a bad position, and they can score in the red zone, they got a chance to win some games. But that's a lot of ifs, and we haven't talked about the defense, but we'll see what happens. Josh McDaniels has his quarterback. He has his guy, the guy he wanted to bring in. So, like, exactly. It's on him now. Like, he moved on from Derek Carr, right or wrong. We don't need to revisit that decision. We've had plenty of shows on that, but Josh McDaniels needs to start winning games because he's got mostly his roster in place now.
I know that. I mean, like, this is, quote unquote, we're not going to judge this team on wins and losses. I guess that's what I heard Mark Davis and Ziegler say. But at some point, I mean, and this year, you can't be going, 4 or 5 wins, 6 wins. Like, you have to, like, they got to push. It's not enough to be like in close games and lose them and then try to, and have people can say, hey, blame the defense. Like, I just watched the whole season of Minnesota Vikings football. They had no defense last year. They gave up a whole lot of points. They gave more points than the Raiders did last year.
Dolphins.
Dolphins. I mean, a lot of teams made the playoffs last year or were winning. Like, there's more than one example. So they have to go out there and do it. And then, the clock, to me, everybody says, oh, the clock is ticking. My mental clock, and maybe not for Mark Davis so much, but my clock on him is ticking on winning some games. Like, this would be the 4th year in his coaching career where he did not have a winning season. I mean, how many of those can you have before people just lose faith in you?
Yeah, at some point he's going to have to start winning games, and it might not be this year. I don't think they're going to move on from him unless they face plant. I do think it's interesting that the national media, I have a feeling, sleeping on this team right now. Not that we're predicting world beaters, but I saw USA Today predicted them to go.
Yeah, so let's go talk about that. I'm glad
had the second worst record in football. I don't see how that, unless Jimmy G just basically gets hurt in training camp. Like, they're going to win more than 3 games. They're not that bad. Like, they have Devontae Adams. They're going to have Josh Jacobs. They have a good Myers. They have Crosby. They have some guys on this team. And then I saw earlier today, the odds to make the playoffs. They have the 3rd highest or lowest odds to make the playoffs in the whole league. Like, I think it was Houston and Arizona are only the teams that have higher odds to make the playoffs. So, like, definitely this team's being slept on a little bit right now, right or wrong. I don't think this is a 3 or 4 win team. I definitely don't think it's an 11 or 12 win team, but, like, let's be a little bit more realistic. I think everyone's just piling on right now.
The same publication picked the Chiefs to go 10-7 as well. So I have that right. I have that right in front of me real quick. I have in the AFC West, they have the Chiefs going 10-7, the Broncos going 10-7, the Chargers going 7-10, and the Raiders going 3-14. So I don't know if the Raiders are a playoff team. I don't think they are. I don't think they are a playoff team. I'll just say that. But I don't think they're 3-14. Now, you know, I don't think that at all. So that's just I can't I know. Especially if Jimmy doesn't play, then all bets are off about the team record. But I would say that is not the case as far as that goes.
No.
But I did see that and I was kind of surprised. Um, that took place. They also have, I mean, they have some interesting records all over the place here too as well. So we'll see. We'll see how we'll keep this receipt and we'll see if that comes if you see if that comes back um as far as that goes. We knew about one injury, so we knew about the Tyree Wilson injury. They're not required to say anything about the injury to Bryant Young, right? So like what are we like he's not on the he can be taken off the pup list before the season starts and start playing. So it's not like he's gone for like half a season or anything like that. But that's kind of like a tough blow for this defense because he's gonna be counted on to play some valuable snaps at tackle here and kind of stuff and kind of be a disruptor for this team.
Yeah, they need him on the field. He needs the reps. He needs to understand the fronts and what his job is, and he can't do that when he's on the sideline. So they haven't said what the injury is. It may not be an injury. Maybe is he in shape or not? You see a lot of teams, 4, 5, 6 guys on this physically unable to perform. A lot of that could just be like they didn't pass their conditioning test.
Mhm.
Wait 3 or 4 days and they get back on. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully he's on the field Friday when I get to camp. I think he's going to play a lot. I think he's going to be, Jerry Tillery, as much as they brought him back, I would much rather have Young out there than Tillery, just for his ability to stop the run and give you a little bit of pass rush. Jerry Tillery's a roadblock or a speed bump, just running over him on film
Yeah.
last year. He gives you a little bit in the pass rush game, but I think Young is a much better player. And I think Young, he might not start early, but I think by the middle of the season, this guy's going to be getting starter snaps in all phases, first down, second down, third down. He's going to be nickel rusher on the inside. He's going to be a disruptive force for them, hopefully. And they need him. They need him on the field. They need Tyree Wilson on the field. I
Mhm.
know they're saying, oh, this was the plan when he was drafted. I doubt that.
Come on,
I don't think they're like, hey, we're going to
stop,
pick at 7. We're going to pick
stop.
this guy that just had surgery. And oh, by the way, we know he's not going to be ready for camp, and we don't know when he's going to practice. And we're going to bring him along slowly. Like, I'm going to call BS on that. Like, you
Yeah.
take a guy 7th in the draft who's a pass rusher at a position that you need next year. You need it this year a little bit, but like obviously you had high expectations for this guy. He needs to get on the field. He needs to get reps. He needs to get after it. Like he
Mhm.
needs to put up decent numbers. If he goes out there and plays 17 games or 16 games and puts up 2 or 3 sacks as a bit player, like come on, like this guy needs to be a difference maker for where they took him in the draft. And to do that, he needs to get on the field.
So so I did hear some people in the media say like he's kind of like they almost gave Tyree a sabbatical for this year, kind of like and I just don't know how you, especially if half of your nation it was looking at the kid who the Eagles took, and you can't if he's blowing it up and this guy's struggling to get on the field, like he's playing in a defense with Chandler Jones, who's still a threat to pass, to rush the passer, and one of the best one of the best players in football, and Max Crosby. Like he's singled up a lot. He can be singled up a lot of the time. Like he needs to get something going. Like he needs to be a part of this defense, and that was part of the when you get the 3rd and long that he's able to come through and help out with the pass rush and help out with the run game and everything like that. That's why they brought him in. They didn't bring him in to kind of we'll see you in 2024.
They brought him in to get to the quarter. They don't have any other pass rushers on this
They
team other than
don't.
Max Crosby and
I know.
Chandler Jones for 2 weeks last year, and Chandler Jones was a year older than he was last year. So I would think at some point, like Wilson, I would love an opportunity where they're splitting reps 50-50 at some point. That hopefully that helps Chandler, where he doesn't have to play every down. But like again, for Wilson to play, 40 snaps a game, 35, 40 snaps a game, he's going to have to get on the field and get in shape. Hopefully that he needs to play in the preseason. Let's be real. They can't just wait a couple of weeks, roll this guy out in the 3rd week of the preseason, start practicing and dust him off and throw him out there week 1. Like this guy's still a rookie. He's still got a way to go. He's got to develop. And when you take a guy in the top 10, he needs to make an impact on your roster,
He
especially on a
does.
defense that's this bad. Like
Yeah.
you passed up Jalen Carter for obvious off the field reasons. Christian Gonzalez, like there was other guys they could have taken.
Yep.
And I understand this team needs to win, but they can't be looking ahead like, hey, we're going to fill Chandler Jones will be on this team in 2024, so let's take this guy and let's bring him along slowly. This front office can't afford to do that. They need playmakers. This team punted first-round picks for years, and this is the first one that Ziegler makes. This has to be a home run. This can't be a single.
No, 100%. I mean, every guy he has to be a home run. At least a triple. It's something. But,
I need a home run. He was picked 7th.
I agree because people are already saying like, hey, he can't be Cleveland Farrell part 2, and like I think he has better measurables. I think he's a better player, higher upside, all that stuff like that. But he 100% cannot be a flop for this organization. Like he has to be a big time player for the Raiders and this pass rush and be a guy who makes big plays for the Raiders.